The latest news, national issues, the political scene, and conversations with prominent personalities. All these firsthand at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. The Supreme Court has issued a temporary restraining order against the Commission on Elections for disqualifying at least 5 candidates from running in the May elections. The High Court has given the Comelec time to comment on the TRO, but as it stands, the candidacy of 5 aspiring candidates is official until a final decision is made. Will the Comelec pursue further disqualification actions on these 5 candidates? How confident are these candidates of waging an election campaign starting next month? To explain Comelec's side on the disqualification of candidates and the TROs given by the Supreme Court, joining us this morning is Comelec Chairman George Garcia. Good morning, Chairman George.
Good morning, Attorney Karen. Good morning to all the televiewers.
First, Chairman George, perhaps you can give us an overview. What are the rules of Comelec in disqualification cases?
Ma'am, it depends on the kind of disqualification. Well, we can disqualify candidates for being a nuisance candidate. We can likewise cancel the candidacy of a candidate for misrepresentation. He or she lied in his or her certificate of candidacy, or we can disqualify a candidate based on Section 68 of the Omnibus Election Code, which is actually a violation of, or technically a tantamount to election offense cases. So there are so many. When you say disqualification, it's a very general terminology, Attorney Karen.
And in the 5 candidates that were recently disqualified, which is now the subject of the TRO of the Supreme Court, what are the grounds for their disqualification?
Well, I think as far as the 4 local candidates are concerned, one is about being a nuisance candidate, the other one is cancellation of candidacy, and the other one is filing the candidacy out of time, and the other one is because of Section 68. Yeah. As far as the national candidate is concerned, the only one candidate which was able to get a TRO, the reason is because he was declared a nuisance candidate under Section 69 of the Omnibus Election Code.
Siguro po, Chairman, will go one by one very quickly with the candidates that were disqualified, and just give us very few words on what the grounds for their disqualification. So one is Subair Guintum Mustafa.
Nuisance candidate. He was one of the 117 candidates for senator who was declared by the Comelec as a nuisance candidate under Section 69.
So he's also a subject of the TRO of the Supreme Court. And
yes,
Ilocos Sur 1st District Congressional Bet, Charles Savillano.
If I'm not mistaken, the reason for the disqualification was because of, it's a cancellation of the candidacy because of the issue of residency, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, and then Zambales Governor candidate Chito Bulatao Balintay.
Because the COC was filed out of time, beyond the deadline for the filing of the candidacy. So it was not accepted, and therefore the restraining order was issued, and therefore technically it should be accepted by the Commission as of this time.
Okay, and then San Juan City 1st District City Council Florendo de Ramos Ritualo Jr.
It's about cancellation of his candidacy for misrepresentation based on being a non-resident of San Juan City.
And so far, based on the TRO, do you think they have strong grounds to eventually get a final decision allowing them to run?
Of course, Attorney Kaya, at this point, I cannot really speculate.
Yes, that's true.
It will depend on the Supreme Court. But again, we will comply with the directive of the Supreme Court. The temporary restraining order is but an initial remedy. Really, when you file a petition for certiorari in the Supreme Court under Rule 65, the first remedy that a petitioner will be asking is the issuance of an injunctive writ, and a TRO is that writ being asked by the petitioner. And so definitely we'll be asked to comment. I was informed that in 2 or 3 cases, we were asked to comment for 5 days only, and the other 2 will be asked to comment for 10 days in extendable. But we have to understand that as far as the TR is concerned, it is immediately executory, and therefore, even if we file a motion for reconsideration or even a motion to lift the TRO, then we still have to comply immediately with the TRO. As of this time, Attorney Karen, the Commission have yet to receive a copy of the temporary restraining order, but because of the announcement of the Public Information Office of the Supreme Court, we immediately complied, we immediately took action to implement the decision or initial decision of the Supreme Court.
Okay, so initially they have announced the TRO, but as you said, you have not received a copy of the TRO.
Yes, we have not received, as of today, as of this hour, the copy of the TRO, but we complied already because we have to understand, especially the national position. We do not have a problem, Attorney Karen, with the local candidates, but for the national position, the candidate for the national position, if we are not to comply immediately with the order of the Supreme Court, we will continue printing the ballot, which does not include the name of the national candidate. Because as far as the local candidates are concerned, the ballots for their cities or municipality or province had not yet started, and so we will have a problem. So in order to prevent us from further continue with the printing, of which the printed ballots will still be set aside, we decided to suspend any and all printing activity.
And how will this impact Comelec's timeline for finishing the printing of ballots?
Definitely, it will greatly impact. For 2 weeks, we had been printing at least 6 million ballots, and we spent 22 pesos per ballot. And try to imagine, we have several hundred personnel at the National Printing Office doing day shift and night shift and verifying the ballots, whether these ballots can really be used during the election. And aside from the amount that we spent, take note likewise that the 2 weeks will be deducted to the 77 days, the estimated length of time that the Comelec will have to print the ballots. So again, we are pressed for time. We will be delayed, but we guarantee to the Filipino people there will be election on May 12.
Yes, and Chairman George, you initially also announced when former Governor Chavit Singson said that he is backing out from the Senate race, you announced that his name will still be included in the ballots because it has been printed at that point. But now that you are going back to reprinting the ballots, will you then remove the name of Chavit Singson as a senatorial candidate?
It was conveyed to us yesterday that he will be going to the commission this morning by 9 o'clock to formally file his withdrawal of his candidacy. You see, Ma'am, Attorney Karen, under the Omnibus Election Code, withdrawal of candidacy should be personally made by the candidate, and it cannot be by special power of attorney, not unlike the filing of the candidacy. So in the event that truly will be able to file the withdrawal today, we'll be able to remove his name from the ballots to be printed, and therefore the name of the candidate who was able to get a restraining order, that's letter M, the family name starts with letter M. We will have to make some adjustment. As to whether it will change the numbering of the candidates for senators, it will depend on the withdrawal, indeed, of former Governor Chavit Singson.
Okay, so that's another technical requirement. You can't just rely on his public announcement. There has to be an appearance in person.
And Attorney Karen, we would like to clarify to the televiewers, to our countrymen, that it's not as easy as you will order the reprinting of the ballots. When we receive the restraining order, or when the issuance of the TRO was announced by the Public Information Office of the Supreme Court, we have to understand that the Comelec will have to change the database, change the election management system, and the serialization of the ballots. So it will take at least several days before the Comelec can do that.
Yes, it sounds like very complicated to manage the timeline and then, of course, having to deal with the ruling of the Supreme Court. And as we said, as lawyers, this is only a temporary relief. So if in the end, the final decision in terms of the merits of the case is that these candidates are really disqualified, then what will happen to the ballots? From a strategic standpoint, do you think it's just safer to leave their names there? I mean, when you reprint, just include their names and then err on that side, meaning their names can be included despite the fact that eventually the Supreme Court may rule that they are truly disqualified?
Jurisprudence is very clear as far as what will happen in the event that a candidate whose name is still on the ballots and will be elected. What will happen to the candidate and who will assume the position in the event of a disqualification. However, for example, in the case of a cancellation of candidacy and the candidate whose candidacy is cancelled and or disqualified, the one that will assume is the second placer in accordance with the case of Halts versus Comelec. If it is a disqualification case, then the rule on succession will have to take place. But in the case of a congressional position, in the event that the person is proclaimed or had taken his oath and at the same time assumed office, then the jurisdiction now belongs to the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal. Truly, there are different effects in the event of a disqualification, cancellation, or declaration of a nuisance candidate.
And Chairman George, what would be the other scenario there? For example, a candidate's name is not included in the ballots and then eventually there's a court decision that says that he should have not been disqualified. What would be the remedy at that point?
Before, when it happened in 2016 and I think in 2019, two candidates for the party list, Ladlad and I think PGBI, were able to secure a restraining order. But at that time, the Comelec was already printing the ballots. The Comelec did not comply with the directive of the Supreme Court. And at the same time, there was one candidate for vice president, I think it's candidate Anad, who was able to secure likewise a restraining order, but the Comelec was in the middle of the printing of the ballot, so the Comelec was not able to comply. The Comelec then at that time was cited in contempt by the Supreme Court, and presently we don't want that to happen to the Commission, to the present members of the Commission. That's why we complied with the Supreme Court injunctive writ, even if we have yet to receive a copy of the same.
But even if the Comelec, for example, in that case was cited in contempt, at the end of the day, the candidate was not able to be part of the election. So what happens to the candidate? Can they annul the results of the elections? And then I can't imagine what the remedy would be if they can hold a re-election.
No, during that time, no annulment of election was made, even by the Supreme Court, and no failure of election was declared. It's just that, again, in an automated election, that will really happen. That's the reason why, Attorney Karen, especially in cases of disqualification for being a nuisance candidate, the Comelec presently had seen it that that will be a problem. So we resolved the cases as early as November so that the parties can go to the Supreme Court and file the necessary remedy. This is the first time, Attorney Karen, in the history of the Commission that there is no pending nuisance cases in the Comelec, national and local, because we have committed that no nuisance candidate will be included in the ballot. So we complied with that commitment. Of course, we are fully aware that somebody will be able to perhaps to get a restraining order. What we did not anticipate really is a TRO for the national candidate. TRO for the local candidates, that easily can be anticipated. But a TRO for a national candidate, we really did not anticipate. But again, we have a contingency measure.
And is there also a restriction at some point wherein candidates can no longer file anything in the Supreme Court to further delay the printing of the national ballots?
As far as the Comelec is concerned, I think most of the candidates that we disqualified for whatever ground or reason were able to go to the Supreme Court already. 117 senatorial candidates were disqualified by the Comelec for being nuisance candidates, and I think most of them already went to the Supreme Court. There is also a period by which you can go to the Supreme Court. You see, the decision of the Comelec and Bank is executory immediately after 5 days from the promulgation thereof. So technically, from the point of view of a lawyer, you need to get a restraining order during the period of 5 days. Although, what happened now is that even after the 5-day period, the Supreme Court still issued the restraining order. And so we have to find a remedy on how to be able to comply with the directive of the Supreme Court.
Chairman George, are you also worried about the impact of this on the budget of the Comelec for the 2025 elections? Because as it now stands, the loss of those 6 million ballots that would have to be destroyed runs to over 120 million pesos. So what are you doing to manage that, the cost?
Definitely, Atty. Karen, although the Comelec has the power to realign certain items of our budget in order to fund a very important or particular item, we can always do that. But however, the resources of the Comelec may not be that enough. However, at this point, Atty. Karen, hindi muna namin pinapansin yun. At this point, we have to proceed with the task of the day, which is to print immediately the ballots and order the reprinting of the ballots immediately. Kasi Atty. Karen, if we are going to be problematic on where to source the fund, what will happen like this or that, then we will not be able to print the ballots. We are time pressed and we only have until more or less April 14 to 20 to be able to complete the printing of the 71 million ballots.
Yes, and has it ever happened in the history of Philippines that the elections were delayed because of the printing of the ballots?
No, I cannot remember of any instance in our election history that the election was delayed because of the printing of the ballots. Always the Comelec is able to ensure that the ballots are there during the election. But then again, the Comelec has the power to postpone an election for at least 30 days. We have that power. Of course, as far as the May 12 election is concerned, that's provided for by the Constitution, and we have to proceed with the conduct of the election at all costs.
Okay, and I certainly hope that you're able to manage this delay that is caused by the Supreme Court ruling. Can you also share with us information on the disqualification of the candidacy of other candidates like Mayor Marcy Teodoro for Marikina's 1st District running for Congress?
The case of Mayor Teodoro is still pending, the motion for reconsideration. No decision yet by the Commission and Bank. No, I think the ponente of the case still studying the evidence presented by the movant in that particular case. So again, the name of Mayor Marcy is in the ballots, and therefore, as far as the Comelec is concerned, so long as there is no final and executory decision, then the name still have to be printed in the ballots.
Chairman George, from an operations standpoint, do you make a decision to delay? For example, for Marikina, you delay the printing of the ballots there because there's a case pending. Is that something that you consider?
No, Atty. Karen, the printing of the ballots will depend on the sequence based on the nearness or the farness of the place. Meaning, for example, we initially printed the Bangsamoro ballot simply because it's too far from Manila. So we have to finish first Bangsamoro, we have to finish Batanes, we have to finish Caraga. So habang papalapit ang lugar, dun lang po yung series ng printing namin. It's not because of dependency of case before the Comelec.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because you have to contend with the logistics of shipping the ballots to those far-flung areas. What about Noel Rosal for Albay Governor?
As far as the decision of Rosal is concerned, we have been waiting for the 5-day period for the finality. I think a case was already filed before the Supreme Court, and last Tuesday, the case did not get a restraining order. And so I think the decision will become final and executory any moment soon. And at the same time, if that is the case, then his name will be removed from the ballots as a result of the decision of the Comelec.
Okay, so that's still another potential change in the ballots.
Yes, Atty. Karen, although we were so elated when the Supreme Court announced that there were only 5 cases who were able to get a restraining order. Although at that time, last Tuesday, a petition was already filed, lodged before the Supreme Court involving the province of Albay.
So 5, for me, that sounds like a lot already, a lot of TROs that were issued. You were expecting more. And historically, does the Supreme Court issue a lot of TROs?
No, the reason is because we have a lot of decisions that were released for the first time by the Commission. Try to imagine disqualifying 117 nuisance cases before the Comelec is not even able to finish even half of the cases involving nuisance candidates even after the election. And most of the time, nearing the next election, that is the only time that the cases will be resolved. So maybe the reason why the several cases were filed is because several resolutions were likewise issued by the Commission.
So it's a matter of efficiency within the Comelec. That's why you were able to dispose of deciding on nuisance candidates. What about party list wala po nag-file? Because this is, I think, one of the elections where there were a lot of party lists that were also disqualified.
We were able to deny or dismiss the petition of almost 200 applicants for the party list. And definitely, all of these 200, at least most of them, went to the Supreme Court. And lucky for the Comelec, not a single restraining order was issued by the Supreme Court in relation to party list accreditation.
Yeah, that would have been tricky, no, Chairman, because party list will also affect national ballots. Is that correct?
That's correct, Atty. Karen.
And how is the situation in terms of preparing for the elections in BARMM? Do you see a possibility of this getting postponed again?
As far as the Comelec is concerned, we will proceed with our preparation. As of this time, only the House of Representatives was able to pass a bill seeking for the postponement of the Bangsamoro election. There is no counterpart action yet from the Senate, although there was this proposal from the Senate President to likewise postpone and reset the conduct of the Bangsamoro parliamentary election. As far as the Comelec is concerned, as you can see, Atty. Karen, inuna nga po namin yung Bangsamoro for the printing of the ballots. So, as far as the Comelec is concerned, it's a green light. We have to go. We have to proceed with the preparation for the Bangsamoro. It's a very crucial area simply because this is the first time that we are going to conduct the parliamentary election in the area.
And Chairman George, later we'll also have candidate from Caloocan, Congressman Edgar Erice, and he is, I think, one of the candidates that was also able to get a TRO. So we want to get your side in terms of his statement that his disqualification was more of a personal attack against him.
Well, as far as me is concerned, I inhibited, did not participate in the case, not even during the deliberation of the case. So I cannot explain and say something about the content of the resolution simply because it's the decision of the majority of the members of the commission. Well, as far as somebody getting a restraining order from the Supreme Court, it's part of the legal process. What is important is we release immediately the resolution, even before the printing of the ballots, for example, for Caloocan. Try to imagine if we release the resolution during the printing of the ballots for Caloocan, and his name will not be included anymore. How can we be able to correct the situation at that point? But now, all those, the five, were able to secure a restraining order, and the Comelec is able to correct the absence of their names in the ballot. So I think it's something that is a blessing, perhaps on the part of the parties, and at the same time, on the part of the Commission to be able to correct what we initially had done, which is not to include the names of these candidates.
So these disqualification resolutions were based on the decision of the collegial body of the Comelec.
That is right, Atty. Karen. Again, as far as the case of Caloocan is concerned, I did not participate. That's why before I've been asked to explain and or questions involving the resolution, but I declined simply because of my inhibition to that particular case.
And Chairman George, what can you give us in terms of updates as to what we can expect with the timeline of the Comelec? So right now, you're going to have to reprint national ballots. What else is on the plate of the Comelec in the upcoming weeks?
Because of the restraining order of the Supreme Court, we have to push back certain activities likewise, such as the conduct of the back election. But definitely we will proceed by the first week of February for the training of the electoral board members, the teachers, who will be serving during the election, and likewise the members of the Philippine National Police who will be acting as alternates in the event that the members of the electoral board will not be able to serve. We are monitoring very closely what is happening in the areas in Canlaon in view of the fact that Canlaon might again cause something that will prevent the people from casting their votes on May 12. And so we had been preparing for any eventuality in that area of Canlaon. And more particularly, we are now preparing for the election in the Bangsamoro. We released already the classification of certain areas into red, green, yellow, and orange. The 38 areas that were classified as red areas are all in the Bangsamoro. And that's why, if you can see, Atty. Karen, medyo problematic yung mga areas na yan. But it doesn't necessarily mean na yung peace and order situation is not manageable. It only means to say that the Comelec should act immediately and preposition forces in order to quell any possible violence.
So just to take a step back, Chairman George, red and green and yellow, these are classifications in terms of safety and peace and order?
Well, it's really more a directive to the Commission, to the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. It's really not to create a situation that the people there should be afraid or the investors there should not invest in the area. Sa amin po yun, so that the Comelec can act immediately, can preposition forces, and at the same time to put the necessary parameters and scenario in order to ensure the peace and order situation is manageable.
Okay, so most of these red zones are in the Bangsamoro area.
38 areas were in the Bangsamoro, although 7 of them are in Sulu. But take note that Sulu is no longer a part of the Bangsamoro, it's already part of Region 9.
And Chairman George, just out of curiosity, earlier you also mentioned the potential risk in Canlaon, and that's because of force majeure events. If, for example, something happens during May elections in that area where voting can't happen because of Mount Canlaon erupting, what would be the contingency plan of Comelec?
Most of the people very near Canlaon are already in evacuation centers, and therefore we talked to our officials in the field. We said that in any event we will have to put up certain areas, we will have to put up certain emergency polling places and precincts very near the place where they are hold up, as we have to ensure that still they are able to vote on election day. So don't worry, we will be able to ensure that these people will be voting, because nobody should be disenfranchised as far as the Comelec is concerned.
And Chairman George, in terms of the premature campaigning, we understand that wala pang ganon because campaign period has not officially started. But when the campaign period starts in February for some of the classifications of candidates, do you have enough people to monitor the premature campaigning and in terms of election spending? Ano po yung mga preparations niyo for this?
Well, truly, there is no premature campaigning right now because of the decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Premature versus the Commission on Election. And at this point, we cannot remove any paraphernalia seen on the streets. And at the same time, even if candidates or aspirants can be seen on television, radio, and newspapers, or even on social media, we cannot do anything yet. The Comelec has so very limited power at this point, even if the election period had already started last January 12. But come February 11, the Comelec will monitor the situation, will monitor their actions, and we have sufficient people. It may not be that many, but the people can always complain on large tarpaulins or large election paraphernalia posted on several areas. We can always order the Philippine National Police or the local government units to remove them. And at the same time, we'll be monitoring likewise the social media posts of candidates. However, we will ask the help of the National Bureau of Investigation, the National Telecommunication Commission, and the DICT, including our Citizens Arm, for proper monitoring. We cannot monitor all the social media accounts of candidates. Take note, if we have 44,000 candidates, even if, for the sake of argument, that each candidate will have 10 social media accounts, then that will be 440,000 social media accounts. Impossible for the Comelec to be able to monitor. But with the help of everyone, hopefully monitoring will not be difficult.
Yes, understandable. That is physically impossible, Chairman George. But what about limits on election spending? I know there were thoughts before in terms of also monitoring posts on social media and then endorsements by others, by influencers, for example. Meron na ba kayo naisip na practical way to do this? Because that would be very difficult to implement.
We already entered into an agreement with large, big social media platforms, and they committed to us to be able to report and at the same time to be able to immediately take down posts which we, the Comelec, considers as misinformation, disinformation, and fake news. Indeed, we will be needing the help of this platform. As far as monitoring the expenditure, we will be needing likewise the help of the other candidates who are opposing the candidacy of somebody to be able to report to the commission. In fact, one of the remedies that we will be doing for the first time in our history is to publish all the statement of contributions and expenditures of candidates so that the people will be able to find out how much money was spent, when was this spent, and at the same time, who gave this amount, who were the donors of these candidates. So we will be able to know that for the first time so that people will be able to report to Comelec that this is not true, that he spent something like this, or somebody gave an amount like this, and this somebody was never included in the SOSE of the candidate.
Okay, that's a good innovation, Chairman George, like a lot of transparency there. Thank you so much for your time, Chairman George Garcia. It was really a pleasure to have you. We know how busy you are, and good luck with the elections preparations.
Thank you very much, Attorney Karen, and good luck to you also.
Up next, we will have former Caloocan City Congressman Edgar Erice when At the Forefront returns after a short break. Welcome back at the Forefront. And joining us this morning via Zoom is former Congressman Edgar Erice, who is bidding to return as House Representative for Caloocan City's 2nd District. Good morning, Congressman Egay.
Good morning, Karen. Good morning sa mga televiewers ng Bilyonaryo at the Forefront.
Kong Egay, first can you give us an idea how did the Supreme Court TRO impact your candidacy?
Well, I was just informed through the media that the Supreme Court issued an order to prohibit the commission from disqualifying me from the 2025 national local elections, and they ordered that my name be included in the ballots.
And you have not received a copy of this TRO?
Not yet.
Were you surprised that it came out, I suppose soon? When did you file the petition questioning the disqualification?
January 3, about
January.
just took me 11 days.
That's really fast for the Supreme Court. I mean,
Yes.
compared to other cases, right? So, did you
Yes.
expect the TRO to come out that soon?
Actually, no. I am preparing for a long wait, but luckily, the TRO came in just 11 days.
Can you give us...
It's really a welcome relief after sleepless nights. Because when I received the final decision of the Comelec to disqualify me, it's 4 p.m. December 27. So I have to get it. I have to get a TRO in 5 days. But the next 5 days is holiday.
Yeah.
So January 2. Yan nga yung sinasabi ko na medyo parang hindi doon kaduda-duda at hindi maganda yung timing. Dapat but inagahan nila para I will have 5 days to get a temporary restraining order. Pero bago ako maka-action, tapos na yung 5 days.
And yes, were you able to file a petition in the Supreme Court at that time? Because I know that for some offices, they still had work, but then the courts were closed.
Yes,
Yeah.
5 days. So after 5 days, they finalized my disqualification. So within the 5 days period, I was not able to file a petition with the SC. It's only on the 6th day that I was able to file.
So, stressful po pala yung Pasko ninyo last year. And
Yes, yes.
can you give us an idea what were the grounds?
I expected it. Sinabi ko naman.
In-expect nyo.
Kasi sabi ko nga, I expect na they will disqualify me with extreme prejudice. Because I filed cases against them for the Ombudsman and the Supreme Court.
And can you give us an overview on the grounds for disqualification against you?
It's ridiculous, it's whimsical, capricious, and I think it's a grave abuse of their discretion to disqualify me on the grounds that I violated Section 261 of the Omnibus Elections Code. I think you can easily read it, Karen, Section 261. It pertains to violations of spreading rumors, false informations on ballots and precincts, postponement of elections during the time of voting. It's very explicit in the provision that these violations can be violated during the conduct of election. There's no election yet. Election yet. It's not even when I made the statement, it's not even election period. So how can they do that and they're saying that I'm spreading false information that will disrupt the election? How can we disrupt the election when what I'm questioning is the machine and the illegality of the machine, because I'm saying that it's prototype, it's never been used in any country in the world, and will be put at risk because we'll be like a guinea pig in the elections. And I'm saying that this deal smacks of corruption, billions of pesos. This is my constitutional right to criticize any government agency and any government official. If they think that I made a wrong or false accusation, then they can file libel cases, cyber libel cases against me, but not disqualification. In fact, even the ordinary putting up of billboards, advertisement during this time, Chairman Garcia said that they cannot disqualify candidates because they are not yet considered candidates. They are still considered as aspirants. We will only be considered as candidates at the start of the campaign period.
And in this, because you seem confident that the grounds are capricious, what is the status of your case right now when it comes to hearing the merits? Is there a hearing set or oral arguments in the Supreme Court? What are the next steps in terms of your
I think
timeline?
the Supreme Court gave the Comelec 10 days to respond to my petition. So from there we will determine what step we can do.
And in the meantime, Kong Egay, are you campaigning? I mean, nung na-disqualify po kayo in December, did that stop you from preparing for the elections? Did you take a pause and think that, okay, mukhang hindi
Yes,
matutulan?
pero talagang stressful kasi syempre yung family ko, yung mga leaders ko, parang tatanong sa akin, sabi nga, yung iba nga, parang mga kaibigan ko kasi ikaw, alam ko pa dyan eh, dapat ka pa may boot dyan, alam mo namang Comelec yan, kapangyarihan yan, wala ka naman wala ka namang any position, bakit pinanatan mo pa yung Comelec, sabi sa akin. Sabi ko, paano ako magiging boses o kinatawan ng distrito kung alam na alam ko yung mga pangyayari na yan, tapos hindi ako hihibo. Biro mo, I've been a representative for my district for 12 years, and one of my advocacies is electoral and political reforms. So pinag-aralan ko yan. And the people funded my yung pag-aaral ko niyan, na being a congressman, pinasasweldo nila ako, tapos meron akong kaalaman, ba't hindi ko i-share yung kaalaman ko? And in fact, makatulong naman ako sa Comelec eh. I remember that during the first presentation of Chairman Garcia in Miss Karen Davila's show, nung machine, sinabi niya na yung machine merong capacity na may cast and return. Kakast mo yung balot, pagkatapos kung may kulang ka, pwede mo return. Tapos i-review mo yung buong balot sa screen. Sabi ko, yan makaka-disrupt sa election kasi it will take time, a minute or more. And with 1,000 voters, aabutin ng 24 hours ang elections natin. At kung hahaba ang pila, ay maraming madidisenfranchise. It's not practical. So sa latest roadshow ng Comelec, inalis na nila yung picture na yun. So hindi nakatulong ako sa kanila.
And when you were disqualified by the Comelec last December, did you regret at that point, making allegations against the Comelec? Nung time na naisip mo disqualified ka?
Personally, wala akong regret. Sabi ko nga sa wife ko, sabi ko, dalawa lang naman yan. Kung makakakuha ko ng temporary restraining order, it's a welcome relief. At syempre, yung mga supporters ko, malalaman na yung pinaglalaban ko at least tama. Kung hindi naman ako makakuha ng temporary restraining order, hindi na ako kandidato, di sabi ko sa misis ko, panalo ka na dahil ayaw niya naman talaga akong kandidato na.
But Kong Egay, si Comelec Chairman George Garcia was our guest earlier before you, and he said that he actually inhibited himself from the decision on your disqualification. So do you still think this has anything to do with a personal tiff between you and the chairman?
No, because he's the counsel of my opponent. Twice when I beat my opponent twice in 2013 and 2016. Chairman Garcia was the counsel of my opponent. He's very close to my opponent. Kumare niya, kaibigan niya. Talagang very, very close sila.
And you're not worried because now you're running under election provider that you were also criticizing and opposing Meru systems. And you've spoken about the chairman of Comelec being close to your political opponent. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I've been in so many battles since I started participating in politics since I was 15 years old. I fought the biggest political dynasties in Caloocan. Kumbaga sa ano na yan normal na sa akin.
So sanay ka na po na medyo mahirap ang laban.
Mahirap ang laban. The hard right path over the easy wrong.
Currently, under which party are you running under?
Under the Liberal Party, my original party.
And with all of these difficulties in your path right now, have you ever considered shifting to the administration's party to make your run a bit easier or to get extra support?
Well, my friends and my political beliefs leans with the Liberal Party. Last election, I shifted to Acción Democrático, which is a sister party of the Liberal Party.
So you really value party loyalty?
Yes, of course.
And have you spoken with the other candidates who also managed to secure a TRO from the Supreme Court?
No, I don't actually know them.
Are there any efforts to coordinate your cases? Hindi naman po ba kinonsolidate to ng Supreme Court?
I don't think that our cases are similar. One is about being a nuisance candidate. One is, I don't know, in San Juan, councilor. It's a residency requirement. So it's really different. So yung sa akin lang yung kakaiba talaga eh. Talagang ibang-iba yung
ikaw lang po yung may grounds on spreading false information.
Yes.
As the ground for it.
Ano yan eh, siguro magiging president yan sa Supreme Court kasi wala pa namang wala pa namang ganyan sa buong
As a
kasaysayan
history
ng
ba ng
Comelec.
Philippine elections, wala pang na-disqualify on that ground under the
Wala,
Omnibus
wala,
Election Code, yung
wala.
spreading of false information?
Wala. Kasi that can only be committed during the voting. At yung mga candidates naman, how can they will not spread wrong information during during the voting, di ba? Candidates. Actually, when you are a candidate, you cannot dapat umalis ka na kagad doon sa presinto after voting. You cannot be roaming around the voting centers. Kasi isa sa mga parameters, isa sa mga sa mga ika nga, kailangan gagawin mo yan during the time of voting at dun sa vicinity ng voting centers.
And now,
Maliwanag yan sa very explicitly na nakalagay yan dun sa Section 261 ng Omnibus Election Code.
the Comelec said that they will immediately comply with the Supreme Court's TRO. So your name will be included in the ballot. So what is your message to your supporters?
Well, alam naman nila lahat, medyo talagang high spirit sila dahil tuloy ang laban at alam naman natin dito sa Pilipinas, ang eleksyon, yan yung favorite pastime ng mga Pilipino. So talagang they are in high spirits. Okay, nagpapasalamat ako sa Korte Suprema kahit paano nabigyan tayo ng kalinawan at sa Comelec naman, I think they will not spend a single centavo pagdating sa mga local candidates kasi hindi pa naman nakaprint yung mga ballots as confirmed by Chairman Garcia. Pangalawa, yung sa EMS, yung sa election management system, saka sa ACM, sa automated counting machines, hindi naman mahirap yan na ibalik yung 5 pangalan. Kasi nangyari na rin yan in the past. Si Senator Grace po, disqualified siya ng Comelec December 19. Tapos nag-appeal siya sa HRET at eventually sa Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court granted or reversed the disqualification, naibalik naman kagad sa yung pangalan niya dun sa EMS, sa sistema. At walang problema. Ang kaibahan lang, noon walang nasasayang na balot. Kasi nagpiprint ang Comelec ng ballots mga February na para masiguro nila na yung mga cases talagang na-resolve na. Yun ang ano. Kaya as far as the local candidates, walang gastos ang Comelec dyan. Ang nagastusan dyan talaga yung sa national position, yung senador. Dahil 6 million ballots na yung wala yung pangalan ng isang kandidato. Kaya dapat Comelec should really be circumspect in disqualifying candidates kasi di ba sa constitutional right yan to be voted upon. Alam mo, tingin ko marami silang dinisqualify, 117 na mga senatorial candidates. Kasi gusto nilang mapaiksi yung balota Mapaiksi yung balota para hindi masyadong, siguro yun yung main purpose. Kasi mahirap patunayan na you are a nuisance candidate in a very short period. So, how can you say that you are a nuisance? I may not have the money, I don't have the network, but if I have an advocacy that can really arouse people's attention, then I can win.
Yes. Kung Egay, few months na lang before the elections, how confident are you that you can return as the representative of Caloocan in your district?
Well, kilala na ako ng tao sa Caloocan. I've been a candidate for 12 elections since 1988, the first elections after martial law. So 12 elections, I've won 7, I've lost 5. Hindi naman ako mihinto. Naglilingkod pa rin tayo sa ating mga kababayan. So they know me. So importante lang marinig ka uli at malaman yung mga ipinaglalaban mo at bakit pa ako nagpapatuloy. Gayong pwede naman na akong magretiro. So
So you're,
I'm very confident that I have my parang yung may connection na ako sa mga taga Caloocan. Siguro inaanak ko sa Caloocan mga 10,000.
okay, so you're confident. Thank you so much, Congressman Edgar Erice, and good luck with the elections.
Salamat, Karen. Thank you.
Comelec preparations for the May elections have been sidetracked with the need to discard almost 7 million ballots in light of the Supreme Court's TRO of 5 candidates. It's a costly decision, but in lieu of due process, judicial decision must be upheld and respected. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations that would help you form an objective personal opinion. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.